in terms of, when I arrived in the Congo. So, and another friend of mine actually, I have to mention this. One of my best friends, his name is Nathaniel. When he heard that I was going back home, and of course we had been talking about, doing some projects in the Congo and kind of doing some charity stuff in the Congo. So when he heard that I was going to the Congo, he said, I'm coming with you. So he came with me, first of all, I think as a to support me, because he's been going to Africa for like years and years. I mean, we know Nathaniel, so he'd been going to Africa for years and things like that. So I think for me, he was almost like my African ambassador. So he came along with me. So I arrived in Congo on Saturday, and then he arrived, I believe, on a Sunday or Monday. So, and then having received the address, I think it was a Tuesday that we decided to actually go and see my dad. So I called, we sent a text and said, someone is coming at the home. My sister wasn't at home, and my dad lives with my sister just because of his health situation. And she says, I'm not home at the moment, but if you can just let the guy know that, drop the stuff at home, you'll be fine. And so I told the driver, I said, no, you be persistent and tell him that we want to see her. We actually have to hand this package to her. And so she said, okay, fine. Since you're pressing that I need to be there, she said, fine, I'll be there. But the crazy thing about it even is that as we were driving near the home, my sister was coming back. I had known my sister. I had glimpse of who she was. But as soon as I saw her from afar, I said, that's my sister. And I'm like, that's my big sister. So I told the driver, the guy that was driving us, I said, hey, that's my sister. Go tell her to come. And so he went along and he said, she was, hey, I think someone wants to talk to you. She was like, oh, who's this guy, talking to me? He said, there's someone in the car that wants to talk to you. And of course, she being a woman, she was a bit like, okay, like public place, you want to talk to me? I don't have a clue. And so we were in this side road, I'm not sure, in Congo, in Kinshasa. And so my sister comes over, not knowing that I was there. And so I step out of the car and she was like, that's my brother. And she just flipped out and she was like, oh my God, like, is this you? He's like, I said, it's me, like, and things like that. Because I guess, your family, no matter how long and no matter the separation, no matter, there's something about blood. Blood has a strong connection. And so my sister literally was like, oh my word, like, you're here. Like I said, so I told her, I need to actually see Dad today. She goes, I think you showing up at the house would cause such a shock to him that it might not be good for his health. I says, no, I'm not going back. I want to see my dad today. And so on that very same day, she says, okay, since you really want to see Dad today, I need to go home and actually prepare him. Just to let him know that, there's someone that's coming to see you, today. And so we kind of waited, I think, we drove the car, we waited, I think, a couple of blocks down from where my dad was staying. And so my sister goes into the house and she began speaking to my dad and just acted like, everything was normal, nothing was happening. And she spoke to my dad and said, hey, someone is here to see you. And yeah, so she said, someone is here to see you. And then she came out, actually, she came out. No, actually, yeah, so she came out, she said, hey, Dad is ready to see you. So there I was with my friend, Nathaniel, we woke up, so there's this like a 2-story sort of place where they lived at. So we kind of went up the stairs and my dad was sitting in the front room. And I walked into this place and my dad looked at me. And the first thing he said when he saw me, he said, what is impossible with man is possible with God. And he couldn't believe it. So he literally just kind of like, had his hands like just on his face and things like that. I'm not sure whether it's because of emotions, but I just think, it almost felt unreal for me to show up. And I think in just my discussion with him, he said to me, he said, I really believed that I was going to die without seeing you again. Wow. He says, I had settled it in my heart that I have a son somewhere in the world and I will never see him again. And this is the place where he said, you know, what is impossible with man is possible with God. So we sat there, I hugged him and things like that. At that point, you know what, there's just, I guess, the emotions of not having seen your dad for such a long time. And of course, his health wasn't the greatest. We sat down and we looked at it. I mean, he still couldn't believe that I literally came. He was asking me. And because, of course, he saw my friend as well. You know, him not being an African, he was an English guy. You know, he says, oh, you know, what are you doing here? I said, no, I came here to see you. And we spoke. We spoke at length. So I think, you know, while I was there about 10 days. So I would at least make a visit, I think nearly every day while I was there, because I wanted to really make sure that I spent a lot of time with him. And but one of the great things that happened from that trip was I knew I couldn't go back home. I knew I couldn't go back to Congo and see my dad without asking for his blessing. I really believe in the power of blessing. I believe in a parent blessing his child. And when I arrived there, I said that to my dad. I said, Dad, I've come all this way, you know, just because I wanted to see you, but also I wanted your blessing over my life. I wanted you to pray over me. So my dad prayed for me. But he said something to me that I will never forget. He says, Christian, you don't understand the impact of what you've done. He says, now you may not understand what you're doing. But he says, give it a couple of years. You will see the fruits. And he says that, you know, you will bear the fruit of your sacrifice. You are coming back to see me. And one reason I really do believe that things are going to be fine in my life, because I think I got that affirmation from my dad. You know, I guess every child needs an affirmation from their dad. I guess from both parents. Jesus needed affirmation from his dad. I mean, Joseph raised Jesus. But can you imagine Jesus, before starting his ministry, needed his father's approval? He says, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased with. And he didn't only say it before he began his ministry, but in the middle of his ministry, on the Mount of Transfiguration with Peter, John, and James, they heard the voice again saying, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased with. I believe there is power in a father's affirmation, an affirmation that comes from a father, a patriarch. I think that's very important in a child's life.
And did you find that your father had almost been hoping to see you again then? So it wasn't a case that he'd forgotten about you, given up on you, but he just didn't think that was possible anymore.
Well, I guess I think, you know, God was working in both of our lives, because I think even, you know, the time that we were separated, there were times where sometimes we would get in contact and, how you doing? You know, kind of just touching base, keep doing the formality. I hope my dad is okay, you know. And so I think sometimes, you know, I will call. So I guess I wouldn't say, like, you know what, the case was totally lost there, but there wasn't a constant relationship where I can say there's a bond between a father and a son. And so what for me, what really, I would say that the God was working in both of our lives. I think at this point my dad became a Christian already. He wasn't always a Christian, but I think at this point, of what I understand, he became a Christian. And of course, God was working in both of our lives in terms of just, you know what, hey, it's important to restore that relationship and find reconciliation. Yeah.
Okay, that's really powerful. And I suppose, so then now when you think about your dad and I guess what that bond looks like, how would you describe it now? Like, what would you say is the difference in terms of how you feel about things?
I would say now, I could say this hands down. I love my dad. I love my dad. I think it's been a process. God has worked in my heart in regards to the relationship. You know, I thought I could get on with life without my dad being around. But I just also now see what the enemy wanted to do to destroy that relationship, because he understands, you know, how important that relationship is. But now my relationship with my dad, I would say, is definitely good. It's crazy. You asked. I think I heard my sister recently say. She said, Dad always calls you his Moses. I'm like, I didn't understand what that meant. He says, Dad calls you his Moses. He says, it almost feels like you came back into his life when he really needed it. And I believe in terms of me coming back into his life and he coming back into my life was a strategic moment. So he almost feels like I wouldn't say a saving grace, that our relationship was restored at such a critical point where his health wasn't doing too well. And of course, he needed support in terms of, whether financially and things like that. I want to be there for my dad. I guess you really can't be a Christian, and be a good Christian without loving your own, I would say. I think love begins at home and begins with those that are close to you. If you can't even love your own, how are you going to love people that are outside of your family?
Yeah, I can totally see that. And so now you're thinking about how this is affecting other people.
Sure.
So talk to us about what you want to do in terms of bringing this message about fatherlessness to a bigger audience.
Well, I think, as I said earlier in the interview, a lot of the social ills that we're seeing on planet Earth today, or even the UK or in the Western world, not all of them, a lot, can be traced down to an absent father or a disengaged father. Now, there's three reasons why there may be an absence in terms of father. First of all, it's a father who's absent, who chooses to be absent. Second of all, it's a father who chooses to be disengaged. A father who's present but is disengaged. And on the third side is also a father who's dead. You really can't determine that and things like that. So, but a lot of the problems and the social ills that we see on planet Earth today could really be traced down to a lack or an absent father or a disengaged father. And I think for me, seeing where we are in terms of our society, we're looking at gun and knife problems, we're looking at drug issues. Maybe teenage pregnancy is not as a problem as it used to be anymore, but you can still see some effects of fatherlessness in society. Children performing bad at school can be accredited to that. Attention problems, problems with authority, listening to police, can all come from the home. I believe even, I'm not saying this is all, I want to make sure that I'm correct in what I say, but even just doing some research, apparently even children that are from fatherless home have a higher percentage of depression than those that have mom and dad there for some reason. So there's a lot of things that, can really be accredited to the fact that when a father is not around, or one set of a parent is not around, it affects the home. And of course, we know that society is built upon the home. And when the home is broken down, society will be broken. So for me, I think in terms of if we want to deal with these social problems that we're seeing today, we need to start in the home. I really do believe that, if the home is built up, the home is nurtured, then the home is taken care of, society will take care of itself. So instead of us dealing with the consequences and the problems in society, let's start looking at the root and the home. And I guess one of my biggest motivation and my biggest reason for wanting to do this project is because I want to see, number one, healthy homes. I want to see restoration of fathers and children, and children with their fathers. And I want to really see, like a lot of these things, begin to be dealt with, I guess from the home. So I think for me, that's one of the reasons that I really want to do this thing called the Fatherhood Gap. Because I believe the more, if we can close or at least begin to decrease that gap, we can deal with a lot of stuff. A lot of the problems that we're seeing in society today, I think can be dealt with, by dealing with the things in the home. I think home is foundational, in terms of where we are in society and the world.
So what would you say is the message for fathers?
What's the message for fathers? I think the main message that I would like to say for fathers, now we know all relationships are not perfect. There's bound to be problems in every marriage, relationships. But there is still a choice to be around your children. Now, just because a relationship doesn't work out with a mom, doesn't mean that a father has to totally disengage or totally walk away or will be absent. So my message to fathers will be present. Your presence is important. I don't think fathers understand them just being there speaks volume to the children. It speaks to the children that they are loved. It speaks to the children that they are valued. It speaks to the children that there is someone that I can get guidance from. I mean, there's just so many things that, a father being present speaks to the child. And so I think for me, for my message to fathers is be present. And for those that are disengaged or those that are absent from their children, I say, you know what, restore that relationship. Your children need you and you need your children. Because there's something about it, not only when somebody calls you dad or someone calls you father, but on the other side, when also you call someone my child. This is your offspring, your legacy. I think we as men like to talk about legacy. I want to leave a good legacy. I want to leave a powerful legacy. But where does your legacy begin? Legacy begin with your children. Because really, those are the people that will carry your name. Those are the people that will carry on what you are doing. So if we don't even take care of our own lineage, our own generation, then we don't really can talk about legacy. Legacy begins by taking care of the home, by taking care of your children, by being there for your children, because those are the children, or those are the I would say the agent that will carry forth your legacy. So that's I would say that's my message to fathers.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's it.
But then I guess putting ourselves in the shoes of a child, someone who has grown up, maybe similar to you, hasn't had that relationship with their father.
Sure.
What steps can they take, or what guidance could you give them in terms of how they negotiate that absence of the father being there?
Sure. And I like what you said. It's steps. The restoration and healing doesn't happen in leaps. It's steps, step by step. I guess with me, it was a process as well. It wasn't like, when I woke up one day, I'm taking a flight to go back home and go make everything good with my dad. No, it took a while, for me to come to the point where I found the courage to address this wound, this indiscrepancy, if I could use that word, in my life and things like that, and actually go and confront the situation. So I would say it's steps. It's a process. I say you have to allow yourself to feel what you feel, because of course if pain was caused and dad not being around, that would have invariably caused some pain in your heart. That's understandable, and that's okay. It's okay to know that you are hurt, but don't stay there. It's one thing to be hurt, and it's another thing to hold on to the hurt and stay there and station at the place where you are. So I would definitely say that it takes a process. And that process may mean that you need counseling. That process may mean that you need to speak to someone and actually just pour out your heart before you actually go back and address this situation with your dad. But whatever the case, make steps towards finally getting to the point where you are able to reconcile and speak to the dad, or dad speak to the children. So I guess it's a process, and it's a two-way thing. I guess it's children have a responsibility, and also fathers have a responsibility. And I guess it's a two-way street that both have to cooperate. And for me, being a Christian, I think what really did help me, I guess, is my relationship with God. Because I really couldn't be at peace with my relationship with God, or be in a place where I'm seeking and pursuing God, and yet I still know there's a relationship in my life. I would say one of the most important relationship in my life was not right.
Yeah. You
hear what I'm saying? I couldn't live with that. God, you can't go too far being a Christian or being anyone, to be honest with you, having, broken and fractured relationship. Yeah.
So what kind of interviews or content can we look forward to in the Fatherhood Gap series when that kicks off?
Sure. So I think for me, I want to talk to people that are at the I have a pulse on these issues. I want to speak to people, like interview psychologists, child psychologists, social workers, I guess people that work in charities that support and that campaigns for the family. I want to even talk to children that have actually gone through, fatherlessness. I want to talk to fathers that have walked away. I want to talk to, I guess I want to talk to so many different areas of people just to highlight this problem, So I guess, you can look forward to a variety of guests, people that have been there, have gone through the issue, people that are professionals, that are providing light and research into the issue. I want to talk to people that are, social workers that are there dealing with custody problem, lawyers, to be honest with you. Because I feel like, the more we talk about it, I guess the more we can find solutions. And I know, we can't fix everything, but we can fix some things, And for me, if I could affect and I could provide a hope to at least even one family or even two family, I think I've done something, I would say, that is honorable and right.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank
It's been
you.
really good chatting with you about this, and I'm really looking forward to the Fatherhood Gap series.
I am too.
Great.
Thanks,
man.